to say the least, when it comes to this Rizin 14 event and calling a Mayweather fight. Even, sometimes you just say, I sit back and I'm humbled because, not many people have called a Mayweather fight, be it an exhibition fight that was far from an exhibition fight, to say the least. But, it's James knows me very well. I mean, it's humbling when you realize, man, I'm in a small town right now. I'm not from the big city anymore. But I've always been a regular humble dude, and realized, man, I called a Mayweather fight. How sweet is that? So my friends are all over it. They're just like, dude, you called a Mayweather fight, right? I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, wow, it's kind of cool. So it was an incredible experience, and I'm sure we'll get into it more. But Floyd's a great guy. We had a chance to talk to him afterwards, and he's different than what's generally portrayed on his Instagram and by the media. I mean, behind the scenes, he's a quiet dude, man. He's just quiet, and he's actually funny. So.
What type of interaction did you get with Floyd ahead of this fight?
Ahead of it, nothing. They didn't get until they got in around the same time I did, which was just a day or so before the actual event. But they were staying at a different hotel. I don't know if people saw my Instagram video or the stuff that I posted. He rolls with 30 people. There was 30 people in his entourage. So if you ever lost Mayweather in a crowd, just look for the bunch of people that were moving. From his bodyguards to friends and family to his management staff. He was always rolling, at least 30 deep. So no real interaction beforehand because obviously he was secluded. And at the time when they were doing the media stuff, when Floyd did come in to do some of the media stuff, I wasn't around. So that was taken care of from their end. I knew enough about Floyd heading into this fight that I didn't really have to ask him many questions. Although I did want to ask a few, but they were answered once that fight took place. Afterwards, much more when we were waiting, when everything was said and done and the whole countdown to New Year's was completed, we were off waiting for the bus. They made us move to a different area because the buses couldn't come in and or leave until Floyd and his camp left because they had a bunch of vehicles and stuff there. So they moved us upstairs and we waited for the bus there. And as we were waiting for the bus, you could hear the rumbling of people coming in and out. And lo and behold, there was Floyd, behind his two security guards. And he stopped and he saw us and just had a quick conversation about, taking the fight, competing. It's kind of weird, but I felt like he felt guilty for what happened. I don't think he was actually expecting a first round knockout in that manner. He went in there full blown thinking, you know what, we're going to entertain the fans and do a 3-round fight and exhibition, quote unquote exhibition. And as soon as, Tenshin Nasukawa threw that hard left hand, Floyd's hands went up and it was game on from there and, didn't last long.
So James, I'm assuming you've seen the fight by now?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
That was something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In particular, that second knockdown was particularly brutal. A vicious uppercut that I thought was the highlight of this exhibition. Tenshin Nasukawa is the Rizin golden boy. That's what he is. He's a guy that 20 years old. He was, I don't want to say, I had some people saying 30-pound difference. It was a 10-pound difference based on the weigh-ins the day before. But he's a 20-year-old who has competed, gosh, I think, I can't even count how many times already for Rizin. 4 MMA fights, I think 4 or 5 kickboxing fights, beat Kyoji Horiguchi in a kickboxing fight, who is another one of their top stars. It's clear that Rizin, at the very least, are not concerned about protecting these guys at the very top because they've already matched up Horiguchi in a situation where it did not favor him. Then they matched up the guy who beat him in a situation that did not favor him. What did you think when you saw this fight?
I think they're really trying to focus on the North American market. And I think that the fact that these guys, like you said, Nasukawa didn't win, but it's the fact that people know about him now. I mean, he's always going to be that guy, at least from the super casual MMA fans, is the guy who fought Floyd Mayweather. So I think, and to some degree, it's just about getting their names out there. I think even the Horiguchi fight is the same thing. But as far as the match itself, I mean, you got Floyd Mayweather taking on, one of the up and comers. But if anything, I mean, we knew that Mayweather wasn't going to go into a situation where he would look bad in any sort of way. So the result isn't surprising. I'm not here going to throw out the conspiracy theories like everyone has, because a fight this high profile, there's always people throwing out their own theories. But I mean, I watched it. I was entertained. I thought it was it was good. And I don't I don't subscribe to this theory of because Nasukawa lost or any of these other things that somehow that hurts him. I think if anything, people know who he is more, and that was accomplished.
Joe, your thoughts as this fight unfolded? Walk us through it.
Well, I mean, from the national anthems, which is a first for me, the Japanese national anthem and the American national anthem, and Floyd sort of being Floyd, just walking around, and he wasn't disrespecting either national anthem, but he was starting to get in the zone, and eventually when the introductions were made and the fight started, I made it clear with people asked me about my introduction of Nasukawa and my introduction of Floyd as they were making their way to the ring. That wasn't scripted. I had no idea what I was going to say. I didn't even do anything. I just said, you know what, I'm going to enjoy the moment. And right before Nasukawa was introduced, it hit me that, what George St. Pierre is to Canada and what Conor McGregor is to Ireland, this kid is to Japan. And that's what came out of my mouth. And, people were looking at me going, yes, Joe. And I was like, that wasn't scripted. It just came out. And as that was going on, I started getting the chills, thinking to myself again, holy smokes, I'm going to call a Mayweather fight. This is sweet. But then the professional side kicks in and it's like, make sure you keep things on point. Try not to crack any jokes. Make it as professional as possible. That's what you're supposed to do. And as the fight went on, I mean, Floyd right off the bat throwing, I don't know what that was. It wasn't a jab. He was just throwing his left hand up. And in my brain at that point in time, I'm like, Floyd, you better take this seriously. This kid is fast. This kid is powerful, and he is going to do anything and everything to knock your head off into the second row. And then as soon as Nasukawa did throw that combination, that thing woke up Floyd, and Floyd put his hands up. He realized, okay, you know what? This kid's not playing around. Let's just take care of business here. And it's funny, Sean, you mentioned about, the uppercut. To me, it was the left hook. It was the left hook because in paying attention, again, it's in real time. And when you take a look at the fact that he never really sat down on the punch, or my eye wasn't quick enough to catch him actually throwing the technique. I just saw speed and power. I didn't see the what we would usually see in MMA when someone's like loading on their punches and throwing the left hook. It was just so fast, so quick, so beautiful. And I started feeling bad for Nasukawa, but part of me was like, okay, you know what? This kid's been in wars. He'll get up and he'll figure it out. But he just went full forward. He was in fifth gear. And he wanted to just show that he's got the warrior spirit and keep going. If his dad didn't throw in the towel, pretty sure it was his dad, but if they didn't throw in the towel, he would have kept going. And thankfully, they did throw in the towel to avoid any more damage because he got knocked down 3 times. But it's not a blur, guys. It is, but it's not, if you know what I'm saying. It's just so cool to be in that atmosphere and to experience that. So, I mean, I was looking online at some of the videos that are out there of the fight, and some of them are at like 2.5 million views, and some are at 1 million, some are at 750,000. And I'm just like, holy Jesus, my goodness, wow.
So let's walk through the fight. The first knockdown looked almost like their legs clashed, and it was a bit of a trip. What did you see there, at least from your perspective, and as you called the fight? Could you see the beginning of the end already there? Because
no. Absolutely. Unequivocally, no. I thought deep inside my heart, I honestly thought this was going to go 3 rounds. I was not expecting that to happen. I do understand the potential, legs crisscrossing, but you could hear Floyd's punches landing. And again, he wasn't throwing full force. There was a body shot that he threw that was full force. That one, I mean, you could almost feel that one through the ring. But, in seeing what I saw, again, you're sitting there and you're in awe because I know what Nasukawa can do. The kid's been called a wizard. That's why I mentioned it on the broadcast. He throws these insane wizardry-like combinations and finishing moves that you can only see in video games, but he executes it with perfection. Now, he couldn't throw kicks in this fight or knees or elbows or anything of that nature, but knowing the skill set that he brings to the ring, I thought there was going to be some sort of combination or constant something that would try and confuse and hurt Floyd. No chance, man. It just goes to show you how amazing Mayweather actually is. And to think Conor McGregor went 10 rounds with this guy, and it leads you to believe a lot of different things, to be honest with you. But that experience, it's like when I used to talk about Anderson Silva back in the day, guys. It was one of those things where you think to yourself, does this guy see fighting in slow motion? Because he's seen so much over his career, and he's at such an elite level that it didn't matter what Nasukawa was going to throw. He's seen it 1 million times, and he knows what the body's going to do. You can talk about Renzo Gracie and Rickson Gracie when it comes to jiu-jitsu. They know what the human body is going to do at any one point in time. So they perfected that art. So I think Floyd obviously has perfected his skill set with the sweet science.
James, when I knew that Mayweather meant business was that uppercut. That second uppercut, I was like, oh, this isn't going to last much longer. And Nasukawa was able to land some strikes, a couple of little combos to Mayweather, although that does happen on occasion because Mayweather is a defensive-minded fighter. Wasn't this time. But at what point did you realize this is going to go downhill for Nasukawa very quickly?
Yeah, it was right there at that first shot. I felt like you could see the difference in not only the power, but also just in the speed too. And I think that, I think we all got the sense, and I'm, sure Joe sort of touched on it there, that you got the sense that Floyd didn't want this to drag on, that, which is typical of his boxing fights. I know there's more of a strategy there with the fact that boxing, in like a normal ring in North America is a little bit different. You could get the sense he wanted to finish this early. And I knew as soon as he was sort of landing a little bit more, that it was only a matter of time. And I think that's, he wanted to do that. I mean, had he just won a decision and played it really safe, I don't think people would be talking about this fight as much. And I think the fact he did get a finish, I think is good, because it's one of those things that, I'm pretty sure everyone's seen that clip over the last weekend. It's floated around everywhere. So, I mean, it's a win-win for Rizin.
We had the third knockdown, a little bit funny in the visual, but Mayweather was able to finish Tenshin Nasukawa. Now, Tenshin Nasukawa is a guy who, despite the fact that he's 20 years old, that we know of, I like to say, because this is amateur fighting, MMA, and kickboxing. He had 111 amateur fights. He had 28 pro kickboxing fights, 4 pro MMA fights. He's at fight like number 150 at this point. Although he's not an accomplished boxer, he's an accomplished kickboxer and MMA fighter. Joe, this was a unique situation. He was finished. That was that. And then you hear it. And it's always going to be a thing that you hear when it comes to Japan and New Year's Eve in particular. We heard it about the Ishii and Fedor fight years ago too, which was curious in its timing. We'll talk about that in a bit. It's a work. It's fake. It was scripted. I can't believe that people would be this dumb to suggest that Rizin would fix a fight that I don't know how to say it, quite frankly, embarrassed Tenshin Nasukawa to some degree. If you were going to work this, you would have him throw one kick, Floyd Mayweather would leave the ring, the subsequent groups with them would engage in a big brawl, and you'd say, oh, okay, sorry, this soured, let's move on. That is the ultimate Japan finish. I'm shocked that people saw this. Did you know that people were going to react this way? Because it almost always comes.
Oh, yeah, 100%. No ifs, ands, or buts. But I try not to focus on it because no matter what, you can pick any UFC bout that happened before that. John Jones and Alexander Gustafsson was fixed because they want to get Daniel Cormier. And there's so many different variables in fights that people will look at and say, that was fixed. It was scripted. I mean, I assure you, and I can tell you right off the bat, that was not a fixed fight based on what I saw with my own eyes and what I called. So I knew the conspiracy theorists were going to come out there and, whatever, dude, all the power to them. It's no different than the flat earthers and stuff like that. Everyone's got their opinion and everyone's got, that's fine. It's cool. From my perspective, I didn't see it as a work. I saw a very skilled individual in Floyd Mayweather's skill set and level on a completely different level than his opponent, who I thought was absolutely I still do think he's a fantastic fighter. But again, it just shows you that there's so many different levels. Even when I was talking to some of the guys that competed on the card, with Johnny Case and John Crouch and Ray Longo, and they just simply said it just goes to show you the different levels there are in striking. And what we saw from a boxing perspective is it's hard to even put into words. I guess it's magical to say the least. But going back to your question in terms of conspiracy theorists and fixing this and it's Japan and blah, blah, I totally expected it. And I haven't lost any sleep over it whatsoever. So no one told me it was going to be a fix, and no one told me or presented me with a script as to what was going to happen. So, yeah.
James, I mean, this talk comes every once in a while. The most prominent accusations of fix by casual fans that I had ever saw was Anderson Silva, Forrest Griffin, another situation that did not make sense. UFC scripting their Ultimate Fighter 1 winner, one of their most marketable stars that they've ever had, quite frankly, to get beat. Also doesn't make sense for Rizin to pay Floyd Mayweather all this money to embarrass one of their poster child. It just doesn't make sense from a marketing perspective. Doesn't make sense. What did you think of those accusations?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We were missing sort of the bigger ones in Bellator. Like you had the whole Chael Sonnen and Tito Ortiz thing where people are like, there's that. The Hoist Gracie, Ken Shamrock. I mean, there's a lot of examples that you could sort of look at here. But like you said, in what business interest does it help? If anything, if Floyd lost, it would look better for business. Had Floyd lost, because Floyd's not with the promotion. This was a one-off. So yeah, I mean, you're gonna have people like that. And let's, I'm not trying to call anyone out here, but I mean, Rory McDonald had that tweet out yesterday where he's saying, something didn't look right to me. Like that stuff doesn't help. Like it's fine if Joe Troll is out there saying this, but when you have someone like Rory, it just looks bad. I get people saying it looked a little weird, but come on, like you have to look at the optics of this, and clearly it doesn't benefit Rizin any way to have Floyd win, especially when he's coming in for $9 million a fight. He's not staying with the promotion.